Hi, my name is Ross Richie, and I am the Chief Executive Officer and the founder of Boom Studios. And you would know us from Something is Killing the Children, Once and Future, We Only Find Them When They're Dead, Seven Secrets, and the upcoming Keanu Reeves book, Berserker, as well as Lumberjanes and Mouse Guard. And there's half a dozen other things that you'd recognize. So I just want to welcome you to the second part of my interview with Brian Azzarello. And you would know Brian Azzarello as the writer of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and the incredible seminal achievement, the 100 Bullets series from Vertigo, and the Boom Studios book, Faithless. So we get to some really good stuff in this, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And without any further ado, my friend Brian Azzarello, thank you very much.
I left.
Gotcha. Okay, so the landscape is interesting, and your creative life. I'm putting together these pieces, and I'm thinking about. So you script something that Andrew Rev puts on your desk. When do you walk in and say, "I've got an idea for a story"?
With him?
Well, or anybody. What's the first time that you say, "I want to write a comic book"?
Man, I really didn't think that that's what I was doing.
Uh-huh.
I was feeling like I was filling in holes. That's what I was doing.
Mm-hmm,
You know?
mm-hmm. Well, you're doing that when you're scripting, and so
Yeah.
are you then? Did you do a lot of scripting?
I did a few. I don't remember exactly how much, but
Yeah. And so you're doing this, and you're thinking of it. I'm gonna use this term, and you correct me, but it sounds like you're thinking of it more like copywriting, where you're just kind of like putting in the words, but you're not thinking of it.
I was actually doing stuff that was getting illustrated, but it was generating content. And it was generating content because we had to publish these books and he wouldn't pay anybody. So I'm like, I'll do it because he's already paying me.
Gotcha. And so this is to keep the trains running, to keep the freelancers fed.
Yeah, and like I didn't want to make any more promises to people and not be able to keep them.
Yep. Got it. Okay, and so you've written some comics by accident now.
Yeah. I created
You've created some content. And so do you have any recollection of that? You know, you're going home at night, you're trying to think of an original idea, you're coming in. Are you pitching anybody on what the different
No, there's no pitching.
You just go do. Yeah. What a unique time period, man.
It was like, just write it and then give it to Andrew. And if he likes it, then it's like, yeah, let's do this. And then, okay, I'm going to hire somebody to do it and you're going to pay them. Yeah, I'll pay them. It's like, no, you are going to pay them.
Wow. Okay, so you walk away from that situation.
Like, I don't consider what I did there ever to be professional because I never got paid to write anything. Nothing.
Wow.
So like when people have asked me, like, what's your first paid gig? It's like, oh, it's Weird War Tales from Vertigo.
Yeah.
It wasn't the stuff I was doing there because I didn't get paid for it.
Yep. That makes sense. So how do you get from Kamiko to Weird War Tales?
I met Lou Stathis, who was an editor at Vertigo.
So Lou's a pretty special person. Why don't you
Yes.
break that down some? How did you meet him? And how,
I knew of Lou before Lou was at Vertigo.
Mm-hmm. Well, where did he work before Vertigo?
He worked at Reflex. He worked at High Times. I mean, he had a pretty good editorial background.
And so you were tracking him through, let's say, his work at High Times?
Yeah. I mean, I read High Times, so I knew him.
Yeah.
You know?
You were familiar with him. Yeah. Okay, cool. So you're seeing this guy that you're reading at High Times. He goes and he gets a gig at Vertigo. And do you approach him at a convention? Because I think this is important. Like we're telling for the audience a couple of different times of breaking in story, right? So the first breaking in story is go down to the damn Chicago Art Institute and look for the job listings, right?
Yeah.
And then show up and be the guy that does 3 drafts, be professional with a client and give them choices, right? That's important to tell people breaking in, right? Do the work.
Well, if you're in advertising, yeah, give them 3 choices.
Right. Yeah, within that
If
context,
you're writing
not
a script,
necessarily as a writer.
please, quick ones.
Agreed. And then sort of, then you're getting hit up for a position that you're looking at taking at Kimiko. But to a certain degree, when you walk away from Kimiko, you got to break in all over again.
Oh God, yeah. Saying I was from Kimiko that is not opening any doors.
Yeah. And so in the industry,
If
that's
anything, that's slamming doors.
right, because your boss has this reputation in the business that people are not
Oh my
open
God.
to.
And then like, there was some of that, there was like a rumor for a long time that like I got hired because I was his drug dealer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that, first of all, that's so awesome. And then second of all,
If I was dealing, I don't think I'd be working in I'd take a pay cut.
of course. Okay, so here, so how do you approach Lou?
Lou, Jill Thompson set it up for me.
Okay, and so Jill knows.
She was working for Lou and said like, hey, there's somebody I want you to meet. This was a New York show. She wasn't there. So I met, Lou made time to talk to me and like, we hit it off. Like because I was talking to Lou about shit that he had done outside of comics.
Right. Because you knew his career. So that's important. I think it's important as you tell people as they look at breaking in, that it's like doing your work. I mean, you sort of coincidentally had been in a place where you had read his work and you were familiar with who he was, and you didn't necessarily have to just rely upon talking about comics. But it's worth telling the audience that a lot of times if you just go do your research and you find out what these people's professional backgrounds were, if they had previous work experience, then that gives you an opportunity to be able to strike up a conversation and create a relationship that can open up an opportunity.
Yeah.
So you're at
most people that I know, or that most of my friends who are in comics, we don't like to talk about comics. We have other interests to talk about.
Well, okay. So thank you for saying that. And that's so important, because the thing is it for comic book fans, they can't imagine that you'd ever want to talk about anything else. And what they don't see is that it's work, because to them it's not work, it's play. And when your play becomes your work, then when it's time to play, you don't want to play in the domain that you're working in. You want to.
Man, you and I both know there are guys, I'm not going to name names, that's all they want to fucking talk about.
Absolutely. That's 100% true.
You go out to a dinner at a convention, and it's like it's nonstop.
Yes.
And it's just like, oh, get me out of here.
Yes, absolutely. But there's a big contingent of people that are working in the business like you and me that like have other interests and want to talk about other things besides comics.
Yeah, I find you interesting. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. So that's huge. So you hit it off with Lou. That's a big moment. Jill pops the door open. She's at DC. She can connect the two of you. But you now, so here's the big moment where it's like, okay, pitch me, right?
Yeah.
Or does he call you? Does he say, I've got something for you?
He said pitch me. No, actually he did. He gave me somebody to pitch him. Yeah.
Say that again. He gave
me a character. He said like, I want to develop this. Okay. What can you do?
Do you remember who he gave you?
Yeah, Phantom Stranger.
Oh, wow. That's a tough character, man. Okay, interesting. And so so how long did you take to come back to him?
And well, it wasn't like I came back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think. I had a pretty all right. One of the things he was like at the time, Lou was as he described Vertigo, it's all fairies and elves and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't want to do any of that stuff. I don't want,
That's amazing. That's amazing. What a giant change, and presages what's coming, which is, I think massively, Vertigo was such a huge pioneer in comics and opened up so many different kinds of storytelling in conventional mainstream comics. But Luz and you are about to change the business again and open up even more of what you can do and make it even more innovative. Yeah, I can. I'll break that down for you sometime. Maybe we'll do it here in the video. But the so that's huge. So he wants to do something different. And how did you process that?
I did everything he told me not to do.
Wow. Okay, tell me everything. This is great.
No, I'm not going to tell you everything. But it was like, he doesn't want, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Like, I came back with a story and it's like, you did everything I told you not to do. And I really like this story.
Wow. What a risk. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't, we took it to, I mean, it's interesting because we took it to like the 11th hour and it was like, it's getting approved. It's getting approved. And this was like, I pitched like, and it's kind of, I haven't stopped pitching this way. I pitched 3 years, which now I look back on is like, that's too much. But
well, and I would agree with you that that's too much, but that's what got it done. So
yeah, but it was like, you know, he'll start here, the end of the year, 1 year he'll be here, the end of this year, and then after 3 years, the story's over, or you can give it to somebody else. But here's the story.
That's amazing. And so you weren't pitching a 4-issue miniseries, you were pitching an ongoing.
No, oh yeah, that's what he wanted. He wanted an ongoing.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what a huge moment. You have you have sort of a editor who controls a library of characters, and he's opening the door for you to pitch. And are you the only one pitching on Phantom Stranger?
I don't know.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're the only one pitching on Phantom Stranger. He tells you what he doesn't want. You go and you give him exactly what he said he didn't want. You got it right. So you were good enough. Now that in particular is a huge flag to me as a publisher and as somebody who has.
I would not recommend doing what I did.
Right. You did everything you weren't supposed to do.
But at the same time, it was like I was trusting my gut and my instincts about like, this is how this character works, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he's not a very strong character on his own.
Mm-hmm.
And he shouldn't be. He works best to me as a secondary player. So we need to pull some other characters into this thing. So it's not about him, it's about these other characters and how interacting with him changes them, that kind of stuff.
If you'll forgive me, sir, I'm just going to point out that sounds a hell of a lot like Steve Gerber's Man Thing to me.
Well,
you get what I'm saying.
Whatever knows fear did not burn at the Phantom Stranger's touch.
Fair enough. Touche. So that's really cool. So it goes up the chain to get approved. And cut.
And
Damn
right
it,
at like
Paul
the 11th
Levitz.
hour. And Lou calls me, and this was after it was like supposed to be approved. And then at the last minute, Kieron said no.
Wow. Now, this is what a mix, again, talking to aspiring creative people, what a mix of a triumph to get that far, to have the opportunity to land it and for it to be received so well. And then the pain of not getting it over the hump there at the end. So,
well, yeah, and then like why didn't, because I was unknown. It was a regular series.
mm-hmm.
And at the time there was definitely a very British sensibility, and I was not that.
Right. Yeah, definitely not British. That's for sure.
So it was a lot of, you're unproven and you're not from the gene pool that we're like employing right now. That kind of stuff. Lou called me and he was like not happy about it. And then his assistant, Axel, called me, and Axel was like, he was pretty upset.
So for those that are not clocking, this is Axel Alonso, who goes on to become the editor-in-chief of Marvel and is now at AWA. Yeah. So he's pretty upset. He gives
He
you
was pretty upset, and he's like, we need to figure out how to, they want new talent, and then we bring them new talent, and they say no, it's new talent.
Yep, sounds like the business to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so strike out with Phantom Stranger. What's next?
Weird War. And that's when Axel started, he realized they'll take a chance on people if it's an anthology, they'll take a chance at 8-page increments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially when you're buttressed by, I remember those anthologies had, Jim Lee and Bruce Timm and a bunch of bigger high profile folks to help sell it in. And so here's Weird War, and here you're writing one of the comics you grew up reading.
Yeah. So I did that, and then I think it was, I forget what the second one was, the second anthology that they did.
Oh, right. Was it Heartthrobs?
Heartthrobs, yes.
Yeah.
Or was it Gangland?
Right. It might
I don't
be
remember.
Gangland. It was probably Gangland. Yeah.
Like Weird War Tales I did with James Romberger, who's a fantastic artist. He's a fine artist, and I really love his stuff. And then I did Heartthrobs and Gangland with Tim Bradstreet.
Wow, terrific.
Well, he could do sequential, but it's 8 pages.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's like, hey, do you remember when Tim Bradstreet could do interiors, or did interiors? I should say. He can always do interiors. But I remember Caliber Tim Bradstreet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then Axel called me and said, I want you to pitch Human Target.
Oh, okay.
And he said, but you're probably not going to get it. But I want you to pitch anyway.
What's his plan?
I think he just wants me to get better at pitching.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you have a fan in Axel. He's pulling for you.
Oh, Axel was definitely an advocate of mine. Absolutely. Yeah. I owe a lot to him.
That's huge.
But at the same time, he said, I'm going to throw in this other character that we have that maybe you have a take on it. It was Johnny Double.
Wow. That's amazing. Because I remember when that book came out, I remember that just smacked me in the face. I was like, who is this guy? And when you then, the next book you do, I was like, well, of course, you're going to give the Johnny Double guy the next shot. But take us through Johnny Double.
Johnny Double was, okay, I got Human Target and Johnny Double at the same time. I'm going to pitch him Human Target, but Johnny Double was what I liked better.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one that was like, this, I like this. I got an idea for this guy.
It's really good kismet, because Axel is setting you up on Human Target that you're not going to get it. And there was publishing around Human Target that you did not do. So yes, that's true. But you're then getting an idea for the character that he's not blocking you on, right? Yeah. He's tossing.
Well, I mean, the Peter Milligan ended up doing Human Target.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm saying
I totally realized why I didn't get it. I mean,
right. Right. But hallelujah that you're in a position where he's tossing in Johnny Double, and you look at that and it's creatively engaging. Because what if he had handed you Metalman or something that you had no affinity for?
I got an idea for Metalman.
Okay. All right. I'm not saying he can't do it. Challenge accepted. All right. So that's pretty killer. So you come back with the Johnny Double pitch.
Yeah. And the Human Target pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time that's going on, I'm developing 100 Bullets.
Wow. Okay. So this is the proverbial question. How'd you come up with 100 Bullets?
it's just, if you can get away with murder, could you get away with murder? Would you do it?
Wow, that's pretty. You know, that is the thematic power of that book, man. It is 100%. I mean, it's a lot more than that, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's
If you knew you'd get away with it, could you do it anyway? Could you do it?
wow. And then you're thinking, okay, how would that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how would you do it in comics, and how would you do it as a Vertigo comic? Yeah, that's incredible. Wow, that's just so clean.
Yeah, I pitched Axel we sat down. I think it was at a Chicago con here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was at the Sofitel out at Rosemont.
Yeah.
Where I pitched him Johnny Double, the story, and he liked it. And then I said, I got this other thing. And I told him about the 100 Bullets. And he's like, he really liked it.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And then he's like, okay, let's do Johnny Double. He said, I think I can get a 4-issue miniseries approved instead of, easier than 100 issues.
Yep. And so he runs it up the Karen Berger flagpole, and that gets a yes.
Got a yes.
Yep. And so did you see, I remember Johnny Double so clearly from my fan perspective, but did you get traction professionally? Did you see the positive reviews? Did you see that it did, and I can't remember, did it sell well? I remember it selling pretty good.
It sold well enough, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was enough of a it was enough of an internal success that we were given another job.
And was that 100 Bullets, or was that something else?
No, it was 100 Bullets.
Yeah. And so that's it. So Axel's basically laying it out for you. You're
Yeah,
getting
no, it was Lou rather. Lou was like, when I was still like pitching stuff with Lou, and Lou was asking me, he's like, and we'd been talking about what we read, and we were always talking about crime stuff, and because it was when Black Lizard was reprinting all of those Jim Thompson books, or reissuing them rather, and the David Goodish stuff and all that stuff, and I was like just devouring that stuff. So we were talking about it, and he's like, why don't you, it's like, this is where your passion is, like, why don't you do this?
Wow.
Like, who cares about, I think there was Unknown Soldier I was doing something with Lou, and he's like, why do you even care about that character? It's like, this crime stuff is what you actually have a passion for.
Wow. So let's just take a quick sidebar here. And it sounds like you're discovering a major genre for you creatively very late in your life.
I mean, I read a lot of crime stuff, but it wasn't until that conversation where it was sort of like put out to me. It's like, why aren't you doing this? This is what you like. It's like, you're trying to write comics, so you're giving me this fairies and elves and shit. It's like, give me a crime story.
That's amazing. And I could also see from your perspective, it's not even possible until you get the permission, right?
At the time it wasn't. They weren't doing that stuff. Nobody
was. I mean, you had Frank on Sin City, and then you had I've forgotten the guy.
David Lapham, but that was a little bit later. David Lapham was doing Stray Bullets.
Stray Bullets. You had Max Allan Collins was doing some stuff that was like
Mystery.
Well, he had Mystery in the 80s, the early 90s. He was doing some of the 50s pastiche kind of private detective stuff with at Dark Horse. And then I think that by that time, there might have been some Paradox Press kicking around, because we're talking late 90s.
There was like nobody really doing,
No, I think that's
anybody doing noir.
Absolutely agree. And so that's amazing. So okay, so then bam, Johnny Double works, you get some good reviews, you sell some books, and then is it Axel that calls you, or Lou that calls you and is like, this 100 Bullets?
Lou is already gone.
Okay. Okay. So for those that don't know, Lou passed away, a very tragic, a very, very sad, a huge loss for comics.
Yeah.
So, and so then, so Axel's there, and Axel has his moment. He's kind of like creatively been there to help nurture you alongside Lou, and bam, it's the moment to take the shot. And do you remember that pitch process? What did you submit? How long was it?
It wasn't super long, but it was, it was pretty much laid out the whole premise. We got it into a point where it was like, we really liked it. It was tight. And, these are the kind of stories we're going to tell, like this, just little like one line things. And he took it to Kieron, and Kieron liked it. But she said it's not Vertigo.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't.
it?
What?
Right. Yeah, no, it was not. That's for sure.
Yeah. So Axel said, do you mind if I show it to Jeanette? Jeanette kind of was the publisher at the time.
Yep.
And so he did. He sent it to her and said, I want you to take a look at this, because he had a very good relationship with her. She was a great woman, is a great woman. And she sent back to him, she read it and said, when are we publishing this?
Wow.
And, yeah. So
let me see if I got this right. So Axel went over Kieron's head.
he didn't go over her head. No, he asked, if she mind if he sent it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yep.
No, he didn't do that. He went through the right channels.
Yeah. I wasn't accusing anybody of anything. I was just like, damn, that's some moxie there. That is impressive. And that it worked. That's incredible. And that's got to be incredibly validating for you to, be able to get the backing of Jeanette Kahn, who's, the buck stops with her at DC.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. Very good.
Huge moment. I remember that book coming out, and I remember that first issue was such a tour de force. It was so tight. It was so powerful. It was so clear in its voice. And I remember you from Johnny Double. And so going like, oh, here's the Johnny Double guy. Let's see where this goes. And bam, my good buddy, Dave Johnson, did the cover. And so
he did 100 covers.
Yes. Well, irony of ironies is I remember standing at San Diego with Dave, and Dave saying, the book's selling. And I was like, well, how long are you going to do covers? And he said, well, I'm going to do them all, which, by the way, was not necessarily something that you would presume in that era. Like, there were big high profile cover assignments that were on Vertigo books like Swamp Thing, where there was a lot of people that cycled through and did runs on them, or Simon Bisley on Doom Patrol. And so the idea that you would do all the covers was unique. And I said, oh, wow, okay, well, how many do you think there'll be? And he said, well, there's 100 bullets. We're going to do 100 issues. And at the time, I think this was around issue 18. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's a marathon. I don't know that that's going to happen, because I'd seen a lot of books get canceled, and I certainly was a huge fan and I loved it. But I think the thing that nobody knew that was coming was how the backlist was going to, the graphic novel collections were going to be something that, and what a phenomenon the book was.
Oh yeah. Like towards the end, I don't think we were making the money monthly, but we were definitely making
the graphic novels were, yeah. I mean, it was a completely new paradigm. And it was really kicking in, those days, and which is of course now how it's done. Again, a way, I think those are two things when we talk about changing the business. So I think when you talk about doing noir, and no one was doing it, and I think that the massive, the high concept coupled with the genre, really, and coming from DC, really changed things. It's one thing for Stray Bullets to be coming from a self-publisher, El Capitan. It's a whole other thing for DC to be taking a conventional comic book audience in the direct market and delivering them a story like that, and the elements that it had. And it was just very innovative. And I think people processed on the creative pool it showed writers and artists that they could do different kinds of stories at DC and beyond. And so I think that kicks some doors open. And then being a part of that vanguard along with Transmetropolitan of the single issue comics that are so, when they go into collections, do so well and sell so well. And you have that first volley of things that are selling into the bookstores next to manga and are really changing a generation, because you get the Vertigo reader. I mean, my entire staff, like, I don't need to tell you this, my whole staff is the creative children of that era.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They were
They are.
brought up on that. Yeah. Yeah. So it just massively changes the business.
That's why you've got a lot of Vertigo style books, right?
Well, the influence is very, very clear for sure. Absolutely. Okay, so mind blowing. So now so take me through, I know going from there to, and correct me, but I feel like the next big moment is, and I think there's some big moments in between, but the next big moment is Batman Broken City, because then you're writing crown jewels for the company. And you've gone from the guy that's kind of on the periphery, that's like pitching, and then you've got this hit, and it's really kind of changing what you can do at the mainstream level. And what's the next thing before Batman Broken City?
Might have been Hellblazer.
Oh yeah. That's a big moment. Yeah. I totally left that out. So I remember that really, really clearly. Yeah, that is some good
I was
stuff,
like,
man.
I was the first American writer on that book.
I was about to say that. That's right. It's the first guy that's not a Brit that was writing a Brit character. I remember what a shibboleth that was to have somebody, I remember the conversation. Can the American even understand the British idiomatic? You think. Do you have any funny stories of people giving you hell about that?
Oh, they're not funny, but I did get a lot of hell.
Yeah.
No, there was a lot of like, it was Dan before it even came out,
Right.
But it still does very well in the trades.
Yeah, because it's really good. Yeah, because you had the goods. No, that was a great book. So then, okay, so now, the big DC's coming and saying, the superhero side is calling. And this is a side that you have, for the most part, not really been interested in, either as a fan or creatively.
Well, they had been calling before, but every time I said no, it's like, no. Then they came for Batman.
And you're like,
this was
okay.
following Hush.
I'd forgotten about that context. That's right.
Yeah,
and Hush is like the classic commercial fastball. It's Jim Lee, it's Jeff Loeb. Here it's a huge sales hit.
Yeah.
Wow. And so they call after Hush, and you're thinking what?
Well, they were, and it was Jim who called, actually.
Wow.
Like, we think you should do it after us. I'm like, I don't know about that. And
it's nice to get a phone call from Jim Lee, though, especially when he's pitching you a book.
Well, and I've learned since then that when he says, we think you should be doing this, it's like, it's already decided I'm doing it. I mean, otherwise I don't get the call.
Oh, that's funny. That is too funny.
But it was, and I've told him, it's like, we would not be doing what you just did. This would be a completely different direction. Because one of the things was they wanted Eduardo and I to do it. I'm like, well, we have this. And it's like, well, we discussed it, and you could do 100 Bullets can go down to bi-monthly for that year.
Wow.
So, and then I said, well, it's not just going to be Eduardo. Then I want to take Dave, and I want to take Trish too. It's like, and Clem, it's like, I want the whole 100 Bullets team, everything. Because
Smart.
I wasn't smart. I was like, I felt responsible for those people.
So, okay, so indulge me for a second. So that's interesting. How do you feel a sense of responsibility for that?
Because if we're doing 6 issues of 100 bullets instead of 12 issues of 100 bullets, that's 6 issues of coloring or lettering and a cover that Dave and Trish and Clem are not going to get.
You're taking work away from freelancers.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I see the guy that was trying to make it better at Kimiko there, the person that feels responsibility for the freelancers. So
Really?
that's very powerful. I will tell you as a publisher that that's really smart, because what you're doing is you're taking one of the big tenets, in comics, which is the story arc after Jim Lee does Batman, and you're using every single person that's on your creator-owned project. And so you're bringing them right to 100 bullets, so that it's the gateway, right? It's like, if you like Broken City, then go try out 100 bullets.
A lot of people didn't like Broken City.
Yeah, is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if they didn't like it, but the people that were there for Hush didn't like it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is 180. I don't even think 180 degrees is the right kind of way to put it. It's a completely different style. I mean, there's nothing in common. Eduardo's work is nothing like that. You don't write anything like Jeff Loeb. I mean, it's a complete departure. But that being said, I also can see how DC is trying to foster you creatively by giving you one of the biggest stages that they can, and you're one of their stars, and they're wanting to keep you in the fold and build you. And so I can see.
And I never took it that way. Later, when I was like, they asked me to do it because they knew I'd say yes, and everybody else would say, I'm not following that book. It's gonna,
So you think it was more like a sucker punch, or it was
I
like,
think that they're just like, he doesn't really care about not having sales, so get him.
Oh, that's hilarious. I will tell you.
There are a lot of people in this industry that are really they look at the numbers.
Yeah. No, I think that's very
I feel that's your job. That's not my job.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well,
I think a lot of that stuff, then I see a lot of pandering, and that leaves a really bad taste in my mouth.
And so let's talk about that for a second, because when you say that you see pandering, what I interpret that, and correct me, what I see in that is you see artists, and I'm going to use the capital A artists, creative people, whether they be writers or artists,
sure,
that are tailoring their creativity to what they think will sell. So
and to what their audience, to what the audience.
Yeah, what the audience wants. As opposed to, I think you and I agree that the audience, in a good way, often does not know what it wants, and that it is a more productive, better creative path to follow what interests you as a storyteller.
I think you'll get a better story out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to second guess I'm on social media. I haven't been on social media really since the pandemic. I walked away.
Mm-hmm. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, it became pretty boring. It's like, I don't give a shit what your bread looks like. Okay.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I get that.
We're all doing the same damn thing. All right.
We're at home. We're watching Netflix, and we're taking pictures of bread.
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't need to add to that.
Yeah. So you're walking away from social media. Sorry.
I did, but at the same time, like, I don't put a lot of. Okay, I will never tell you how you should respond to what I did. I will never do that.
Mm-hmm.
I will never get out, and this is it is definitely to my detriment, I think. But philosophically, I have a real hard time with people telling their followers or their fans how great this thing is that isn't out yet. That is not my position to say what I did is great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is yours, not you. But I mean, the people that read it. I don't want to color your,
Right, the audience's perspective. So I think this is very artistically pure, and I think in all the positive ways. And I think we're sort of the comic book publishing in North America is very much colored by Stan Lee, right? So Stan was the consummate salesman and was brilliant at having a conversation with the audience and sort of creating. He was the ultimate hype man and did this amazing job of making people feel like they knew him and were a part of the crew. And so I'm going to go with not a Stan Lee guy.
You mean like Stan and I got along?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Stan and I got along, but I mean, no, that's not. But Stan was doing it from not from as a creator. He was doing it as a publisher.
Right.
You know, that's different. That I think is your job as a publisher. You're supposed to be that guy.
You know, I think that's something that is not understood about Stan. And I don't think we've ever had someone who wrote almost every single comic and was the editor-in-chief at the same time. I can't think of any other creative figure in comics. And I don't know, European comics, maybe there's somebody over there, but in North American comics, I can't think of anybody who did that.
Well, there's a debate about, as you know, about how much he actually did right, but
yeah, and I think that that's a very healthy debate, and I think that we'll never know the truth one way or the other. And I
do think that I mean, regardless of what he did or didn't write, he definitely laid the groundwork of what it meant to be Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
And what if I'm not writing it, you're writing it. This is how you're supposed to be writing, you know?
Right. Absolutely.
These are the issues that we, you know.
Well, he
unlike DC characters, Marvel characters are defined by their flaws.
Absolutely. Okay, now I'm going to get out a little over my ski tips, and you can smack me around when I go too far. But I'm a huge Kirby fan, and I'm probably a bigger Kirby fan than I am a Stan fan. And I was friends with Stan and published 3 Stan series, and Stan is very close to my heart. But I think that Stan having to write romance comics in the 50s, there's a romance-like soap opera sense of characterization that Stan brought to scripting.
Sure.
That I think is, for the most part, how mainstream superhero comics are done, because the DC stuff didn't have any interpersonal dynamics. If you go back and you look at the 40s Gardner Fox, the Justice League Renaissance, that 1957 to like 1960 superhero Renaissance, with Gardner Fox on the Justice League, there's not, they're just a bunch of white dudes, and most of which are blondes, that are like going to have a mission with a threat.
That's to me, that's always been a problem with these characters, is that they're interchangeable. Everybody on the team has the exact same outlook of the world. They're all fighting for the same reason, you know.
Yep.
There's no individuals.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, I think when you look at the Fantastic Four and just the whole idea that they fought was such an innovative idea. And
they were a family,
a family that disagreed. And so I think that's one of the innovations that Stan brings to the form. And if I were to be a scholar and I were to look at the work, I didn't see a lot of that in Kirby's work after he left Marvel, and I didn't see a lot of it in his work before he went to Marvel. And so that's why I'm given to,
I agree with you, yeah,
characterizing it as Stan and knowing Stan's background of having to write those romance comics for so long.
But yeah, and that feeds into what I said. It's like, Stan, if you were doing Marvel, if you were writing the Marvel comics, these are the points you have to hit in each story, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
There needs to be self-doubt.
Mm-hmm. Which for the DC characters before then was impossible.
Well, the DC characters are the jocks and the cheerleaders.
Oh, that's interesting. So you read them as perfect.
think that they're
Yeah.
fairly written as perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. I totally see that. Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, Batman's in the DCU. Batman's one of the three smartest guys on Earth.
And a billionaire.
Yeah, and he dresses up in a costume. That's not so smart.
Oh, we're gonna get the hate mail for this one. Oh, I love it.
I'm used to it.
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares? Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, my favorite Howard Chaykin quote, and I have so many, but I'll say my favorite Howard's
very quotable.
Isn't that true? My favorite Howard Chaykin quote is, "I have no respect for a billionaire that gets dressed up in black leather and beats up on petty criminals."
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite an angle.
And as far as the hate mail, I love it.
Well, it's interesting because I sort of have legs in all these worlds where I completely understand your creative perspective, and I can understand that creative perspective and also have enough comic books, superhero comics, that it annoys my wife. So both things can be true at the same time. A little bit of self-awareness about your genre is a good thing.
I really enjoyed talking to Brian. That was a lot of fun. And I really got a kick out of connecting with him and getting his winding path of how he got into comics. It was very unorthodox and an incredible story. So thank you for watching. And I invite you to hit like and subscribe and leave me a comment. Tell me what you thought. And please share this, help get the word out so that we can do more great in-depth creator interviews. Thanks again for watching.